NCQG must take into account critical adaptation and loss and damage needs of vulnerable communities in Africa and other developing countries. It must encompass financial projections for undertaking actions in the spheres of adaptation, loss and damage, mitigation and just transition in supporting developing countries to transition to low-carbon development pathway. 2, the means of implementation must feature in the GGA negotiations since the targets identified are useless if not coupled with resources to support attainment of the same. We warn against concerted efforts by rich countries to push the work on development of indicators to the Adaptation Committee. While we appreciate the crucial role of the Adaptation Committee play in the adaptation agenda, we assert AGN position that the work on indicators is too sensitive to be left in the hands of the Adaptation Committee. We call for a party-driven process and preferably an ad hoc working group to ensure we have context-based indicators that align with the realities of local communities, indigenous people, youth, and marginalized communities to guide financial projections for the finance goal. 3, the National Adaptation Plans, NAPs, are a crucial vehicles through which countries chart their priority actions. We are concerned by the stringent processes put in place to hinder developing countries from accessing support for development of the NAPs. As it were, less than 50% of countries in Africa have accessed the funds, leave alone accessing financial support for implementation of the same. 4, we are disturbed by the proposal coming from rich countries to push the burden of implementation of NAPs to developing countries through what they are calling domestic resource mobilization. These are the semantics we are talking about. It is worth noting that these developing countries, particularly in Africa, are already paying the cost of adaptation dearly. We assert that NAPs must be funded through the public finance from the high polluter countries and that their implementation must not be privatized. 5, we are profoundly alarmed by the numerous attempts to tamper with the Paris Agreement. The attempts to move agenda items from COP to CMA must be avoided at all costs. SB 60 is marred by systemic attempts to move items like review of adaptation committee from COP to CMA, even though there exists a decision from Glasgow that clearly states that adaptation committee review is supposed to be conducted by COP with participation of CMA. Similarly, there is a concerted effort to push the gender agenda item to CMA, which is unacceptable. We reiterate that the probation of the convention and the CMA must be read together and that there should be no attempt to use CMA as soft landing bay to frustrate effort by developing countries and Africa in particular. Finally, we assert that parties under UNFCCC must embrace the principle of inclusivity in line with the doctrine of procedural justice in regards to visa approvals for developing country parties. The delegates from Africa experience serious challenges in visa approval to attend SB 60, and there are fears that a similar obstacle may be experienced in Baku. Denying delegates from developing countries and Africa in particular visa to attend these important conferences tantamount to sealing their fate, and this will